Right, okay, now Combat Patrol issue 2. Probably won't take as long to go through this one as my issue 1 because, it's not as much to it. But what I really like is Von Lin's Leapers. Now, they are a type of lictor, or at least the lore suggests to me, that my knowledge of Tyranid suggests that they're a special unit of lictors, a more deadly form of lictors, if you can believe that. Lictors are already really powerful Tyranids, because they can kind of deep strike and camouflage, which is really cool. Anyway, let's start off with the basics then. So, see, it goes straight into the how to build on these. Stormbringer left that for a little bit, but it's straight into the how to build on these. Maybe because that's what people want to do, they just want to get them built. They are push fit, which, it speeds up the build, but I really hope it doesn't have the problem that some of the Age of Sigmar push fit have, where they kind of just don't fit properly. And if you know what you're doing, you start end up gluing them anyway and cutting parts. Okay, but it looks like a very easy build because it's only covering like really barely a page and a half of instructions. So hopefully they're going to be quick to build. Talking about how to paint Citadel miniatures generically. Now, if you're new to the hobby and this is your first foray into it, you're not going to have any paints. You're going to be building up your paints as time goes on. Now, that's it really. It's a very simple painting guide because there's no paint, so there's no point there in really going into too many details at this point. Now, of course, lore. I buy these kind of books for the lore. There is no other way to put it. I get these subscriptions because I love to read up on the scene. Because without lore, there's nothing to really inspire you. There's nothing really to draw you on. There's no other way to put it. So, we've got some core information about our Defenders of Humanity. Obviously, we got our Space Marines, the poster boys for Warhammer 40k, but we've also got, our true heroes of the Imperium, which are the Imperial Guard. They're the guys who basically, unfortunately have to get slaughtered in their millions in order for the Imperium to carry on working. Then we've got our Adeptus Sororitas, basically our Sisters of Battle, who are technically they're not augmented like Space Marines, but they are power armored, basically warrior nuns, which you've got to love. Then of course you've got our cybernetic warriors of the Adeptus Mechanicus, who basically vaguely build everything and keep everything working, but they're rubbish at it. There's no other way to put it. The Mechanicus is, well, they can take something that already exists and make a copy of it. They don't understand how anything works really, or at least not in any true meaningful way. They struggle to make anything new or unique. Right, and then we've got a nice little bit about the Tyranids, about how their Vanguard swarms work. We've got things like the Gene Stealers, who are they're an interesting set, the Gene Stealers. If you look back in the really old lore, the Gene Stealer cults and the Tyranids were kind of very always separate armies, and then they brought the Gene Stealers into the Tyranids. And then over the last few years, they've realised that actually the Gene Stealer cults were really a lot of fun, so they brought them back again. So these are like your kind of, these things basically get into planets, get into hive worlds, infect the local population with the Gene Stealer Gene Stealer embryos, very, very much like aliens basically. And then they create offspring, and then they spread as cults basically. So the Gene Stealers and the Tyranid main swarm are all part of each other. Again, you've got some very nice. I don't tend to know. I've never come across anyone who doesn't like the Tyranids. I know some people don't want to play them, but I've never really come across anyone who doesn't like the idea of this massive swarm of kind of weird insectoid bugs that are ripping their way across the galaxy. They're coming from an external galaxy to the Milky Way, and they're literally just eating everything in their path. They don't really have an end game. They don't really. They're literally just there to survive. So there's no plotting as far as anyone can tell. Anyway, so you've got some nice stuff about Tyranids in there. So I'm really pleased with the level of detail in this one. They've really tried to kind of make up for the fact that there's not really much to paint. There's no other way to put it. There's no painting section properly, so they're making sure that they give us something. We've got a nice setup for a little battle to play to teach you the basics. So what we've got coming up is Infernus Marines. Now I find that quite good that they're heading straight into a special weapons squad of Space Marines and not just a regular squad, very much like we got Von Rin's Leapers in issue 2 instead of, say, just a bunch of gaunts. But of course they're going to make up for that later. Then of course we're going to start getting some paints. Now I've got all of these paints, but it's always worth having more paints. Okay, so here we go. Basically, we've got a nice little issue there, and let's have a look at Von Rin's Leapers. So, as you can see, they've really packed it into this sprue. My guess is, like with a lot of newer units with Games Workshop, there's a good chance that they're single build because they're push fit, so it only goes together one way. However, I will give a caveat to this. I used to have a Tyranid army where there was the ability to position arms and things a bit more, and I'm going to admit I actually found them so prone to falling apart, breaking at the slightest knock and things like that. So in some ways, if they are just like one way of building, it's probably a kind of a positive thing for these, because I guarantee if they were more flexible, every time you tried to move them, they would just fall apart. The level of detail on them, you can tell this is like a newer kit though. The detail on them is amazing. The kind of the way that the ridges are, the depth in the rib cage. The Tyranid line is quite old now, so when they brought out the new edition in the Tyranids, it was great to see refreshed Tyranids. They've got they've got those lovely kind of mandibles on their lips, which seems to be different again from the standard Lictor. The standard Lictor more has like call it a Zoidberg face basically, with the tentacles rather than these kind of teethed mandibles. I think that's a correct term for those anyway. So they look really good. They look like they're dynamic. They look like they're moving, which is very important with Tyranids. You've got to believe that thing is flowing towards you in an endless, or at least, devastating horde. So that is issue number 2 of Combat Patrol. And of course, so far, I'm pleased. I tend to get more critical as these things go on. So I know for a fact that with Stormbringer, I'm becoming very critical of some of the content at the moment, but that's because I feel like it's kind of like coming to the end, and they're not giving us as much. So I like these kind of early ones where they give you more, but I know what to expect in the long run. Okay then, so that is Combat Patrol issue number 2. I'm going to collect the whole of the Combat Patrol. I'm going to build the whole of the Combat Patrol. And I shall see you when I start building things.